My name is Diane Morgan, and for 20 years of my life, I believed in one simple rule. If you work hard, stay loyal, and do the right thing, everything will eventually make sense. I was wrong. Or at least, that's how it felt the day my boss promoted his daughter instead of me. I'm 51 now. At the time this story begins, I was 49. Middle management in a mid-sized logistics company, one of those places with gray carpets, humming printers, and a break room coffee machine that always smells burned. I wasn't a star. I wasn't on magazine covers, but I was the kind of person every office quietly leans on, the Diane will handle it person. I started as a data clerk fresh out of community college. No connections, no fancy degree, just a good head for details and a work ethic my parents hammered into me. Over the years, I learned everything. How to calm angry clients, how to fix broken processes no one else wanted to touch, how to train new hires so they didn't quit in the first month. When someone didn't know how something worked, they came to me. When a deadline was impossible, they added my name to the project. When a mistake slipped through, I was usually the one who stayed late to fix it. Diane is irreplaceable, I heard more than once. You're the backbone of this team, my boss Mark would say with a grin, clapping me on the shoulder. At first, those words felt good. Later, they would taste different. Our department handled routing and scheduling for several big accounts. It was complex work, lots of moving parts, lots of ways for things to go wrong. I supervised a small team unofficially. Officially, my title was still senior coordinator. No manager. No extra salary bump. Just more things on my plate. Titles are just words, Mark would say whenever I lightly brought it up. We all know who really runs the show here. He'd say it with a chuckle, like we were in on some friendly joke together. I laughed along. But when I went home at night, my shoulders ached in ways the paycheck didn't quite justify. My daughter, Jenna, would tell me, "Mom, you need to ask for what you deserve. They're never going to just hand it to you." I'd wave her off. "I'm not like you," I'd say. "You're brave. I'm steady." "Steady doesn't mean invisible," she'd reply. "Not unless you let it." She wasn't wrong. I just didn't know how to be anything else. Then came the merger. Our company got bought by a larger firm. New logos, new policies, new buzzwords, and most importantly, a new org chart. Rumor was that they were reorganizing our entire division. Some positions would be cut, others merged, and a few new leadership roles created. One of those roles was operations manager for our site. It would oversee exactly the work I've been quietly doing for years. Coordinating systems, managing people, keeping clients on the edge of happy instead of furious. My team started encouraging me. "You should go for it," said Brian, one of the younger coordinators. "You're already doing half that job. If you don't get it, nobody deserves it," said Maria, who had been with me since my first year. Even Mark seemed to be pushing me. "You know they'll be looking for someone with your experience," he said one afternoon. "Update your resume. I'll put in a good word." I let myself hope, not wildly, not in a "this is guaranteed" way, just in a quiet, maybe this time way. I spent a weekend polishing my resume. I pulled concrete numbers, reduced routing errors by X%, retained Y clients through crisis management, trained C new employees with a 90% retention rate. It felt strange, seeing my work turned into bullet points. I submitted my application. I had an interview with HR. I did a second round with someone from corporate. It went well. "You have a lot of institutional knowledge," the woman from corporate said, "and your team's performance metrics are strong." I went home that night feeling cautiously proud. Jenna called. "How'd it go?" she asked. I said slowly. "I think it went well." "Good," she said. "You've earned this." And one Monday morning in early spring, everything tilted. I came into the office with a coffee in one hand and my laptop bag in the other. The air felt different. People were whispering near the cubicles. There was a tight, uncomfortable energy floating above the usual keyboard clacking. I set my bag down and opened my email. Nothing new. I was about to dig into my regular morning reports when I noticed something. Mark's office door was open. Inside, sitting in one of the chairs, was a young woman I'd never seen before. Early 20s, perfectly styled hair, crisp blazer that still looked stiff with newness. Mark was leaning across his desk, talking to her with animated gestures. I paused for a second, watching. He caught my eye and waved me in. "Diane," he called. "Come in for a second." I walked toward the office, heart beating a little faster. Maybe this was related to the new role. Maybe this was my welcome to your promotion conversation. I stepped in. Mark gestured to the young woman. "Diane," he said, "this is Tessa. She's going to be joining our department." Tessa stood up, smiling politely. "Nice to meet you," she said, offering a hand. "I've heard a lot about you." "Nice to meet you too," I replied automatically, shaking her hand. Mark continued. "She's going to be shadowing us for a while, getting to know the ropes," he said. There was something in his tone that made my stomach drop. I thought the operations manager role was still in decision phase, I said carefully. He cleared his throat. "About that," he said. "Let's close the door for a moment." He shut it. I felt the walls move, metaphorically. "We had our final calls with corporate last week," he said, avoiding my eyes. "They're bringing in fresh blood for the manager role. Someone with a brand communications background who can bridge operations and corporate messaging, or whatever buzzwords they're using." My ears rang. "Fresh blood," I repeated. "As in not me," he winced. "Look, Diane," he said, "you know you're essential here. We'd be lost without you. Everyone knows that. But you're so good at what you do now that you decided to keep me doing it," I finished for him. He opened his mouth, then shut it. "Is she?" I started, then stopped. He sighed. "She's my daughter," he said quietly. "Tessa." Of course she was. The last puzzle piece clicked into place with a dull thud. "Oh," I said slowly. "The operations manager role I've been unofficially doing for years is officially going to your daughter, who just met our team today." He frowned. "That's unfair, Diane," he said. "She's smart. She has a degree. Corporate wants fresh perspectives. And honestly, you're irreplaceable where you are. We can't afford to lose you in the coordinator role." There it was. The compliment that was. Irreplaceable, but not promotable. Valued, but not valued enough. He went on. "Way, you don't have to deal with the extra stress that comes with a title," he said, as if he were doing me a favor. "You can keep doing what you're great at without all the political nonsense." I stared at him, something inside me quietly shifting. "Did you ever actually put my name forward?" I asked. "Or was this decided before I even applied?" He hesitated just a fraction of a second too long. "I mentioned you," he said, "but corporate made the final call." I looked at Tessa. She looked comfortable. Her eyes flicked between her father and me, realizing she'd walked into something bigger than a new job. "I don't want to step on any toes," she said quickly. "I'm excited to learn from you, Diane. Dad says you're the best." I forced a smile. "I'm sure we'll work well together," I said. "Welcome aboard." My voice sounded far away to my own ears. The next few weeks were surreal. Tessa got the big desk, the title, the email announcement. "Please join us in congratulating Tessa Morgan as our new operations manager," the memo read. "She will be leading our division's strategic initiatives and overseeing process improvements." I got a line buried halfway down. "We would also like to thank Diane for her continued dedication and support." People came to my desk to whisper their reactions. "This is ridiculous," Maria said. "She's been here 5 minutes." "You're the one who trained half this team," Brian said. "What are they thinking?" Shrugged, a gesture I'd perfected over the years. "It is what it is," I said. But inside, something was unraveling. I watched as Tessa stumbled through meetings. She didn't understand our systems. She used buzzwords without substance. She deferred to me constantly in front of clients. "Diane, can you jump in here and explain the routing adjustment?" "Diane, do we have data on last quarter's delays?" "Diane, what do you think we should do?" I answered. I fixed things. I made her look competent. Because I was professional. Because it was my job. Because I didn't know how not to, but I felt it. The sting, the humiliation. The quiet, bitter little voice that whispered, They'll never give you the title, but they'll hand her your work. One night, I came home more drained than usual. Jenna was visiting, sitting at my kitchen table, scrolling on her laptop. "How was it?" she asked. I dropped my bag on a chair and sighed. "They gave the job to his daughter," I said. "Manager role? The one I interviewed for, it's hers." She snapped her head up. "You're kidding," she said. "I wish I were," I replied. "She started last week." "Does she know what she's doing?" Jenna asked. "She's learning," I said carefully. From me, realization dawned in my daughter's eyes. "So you're doing the work," she said, "and she's getting the title and the pay." I didn't answer. That was answer enough. Jenna's face hardened. "Mom," she said, "this is not okay." "It's corporate," I said weakly. "These things happen." "That doesn't make them okay," she insisted. "You taught me to stand up for myself. When are you going to stand up for you?" I looked away. "I'm 50, I said quietly. "I don't have time to start over. I have a mortgage. I have health issues that need insurance. I can't just blow everything up because life isn't fair." She softened. "I'm not saying blow everything up tomorrow," she said. "I'm saying, don't tell yourself this is the only way. Don't let them convince you that being used is the same as being valued." Her words landed somewhere deep, where the seed of something new was trying to grow. Not anger, exactly. Not revenge. A kind of clarity. A few weeks later, we had a client crisis. One of our biggest accounts had a shipment go sideways. A misrouted container. Delayed trucks. Money on the line. Tessa panicked. She called an emergency meeting. "We need to get ahead of this," she said, pacing the conference room. "Need a narrative? What we need," I cut in gently, "is to reroute the trucks, adjust the manifests, and call the client with a concrete plan." She looked at me, eyes wide. "Can you handle it?" she asked. "Yes," I said. I did handle it. I stayed late. I coordinated 3 different warehouses. I calmed a furious client who was ready to pull their business. By the next morning, the crisis was contained. The client sent an email. "I want to commend your team," it read. Particularly Diane, who walked us through every step and made sure we were taken care of. They Mark. He forwarded the email to corporate with a note. "Great work from the team under Tessa's leadership. Proud of how our new operations manager handled this challenge." I stared at the forwarded email for a long time. Then I quietly printed the original message, the one with my name in it, and slid it into a folder in my desk. Not as ammunition, as a reminder of what I really did, of who really saw it. I'd love to tell you that karma showed up immediately. That same day, the boss got exposed. The daughter confessed she wasn't ready. I was showered with apologies and given my rightful title. Life doesn't work on internet timing. For a long while, nothing changed on the surface. I kept doing my job. I kept helping clients. I kept training new people. Mark kept calling me irreplaceable in meetings. Tessa kept deferring to me in private, and then taking the praise in public, sometimes awkwardly, sometimes not. There were days I went into the bathroom, locked a stall, and let myself cry for exactly 3 minutes. Then I'd wash my face, look myself in the mirror, and say, "You know who you are. They don't get to define that." It sounded cheesy. It helped anyway. What I didn't know then was that someone else was watching. Not Mark, not corporate. Someone I had almost forgotten. And the way I handled those months, the professionalism, the refusal to sabotage, the quiet integrity was planting seeds I couldn't see yet. Seeds that would eventually grow into an exit I had never imagined was possible. But that part of the story comes later. Time passed, not in a dramatic movie montage way. In the slow, grinding way office years pass when you're tired, but still showing up. I stayed. People asked me quietly if I was going to leave. "You could get a job anywhere," Maria said. "You have more experience than half this building." "Recruiters would eat up your resume," Brian added. I wasn't so sure. "I'm 50, I kept reminding them. "They're not exactly lining up to hire women my age in operations." But I did start doing something I'd never really done before. I paid attention to how people treated me, to how much energy I spent holding everything together, to the growing gap between between what I gave and what I got back. I quietly started putting my name on things, not in a loud, political way, just accurately. When I wrote reports, I added prepared by Diane. When I emailed clients with solutions, I CC'd the right people so the trail was clear. When I fixed a recurring problem, I documented the process and shared it, not just verbally. If they were going to lean on me, the least I could do was leave a trail of evidence that I existed. One afternoon, about 6 months after Tessa arrived, we had our quarterly review with one of our biggest clients, a manufacturing company called Alderline. Their head of logistics, a woman named Karen Hill, had been with us for years. She was sharp, no nonsense, and allergic to fluff. We'd spoken on the phone hundreds of times. I talked her down from panic when weather delays threatened her shipments. I'd stayed late to make sure her end-of-quarter numbers stayed clean. We'd never met in person. That changed when Alderline decided to visit the facility to review operations firsthand. On the morning of the visit, the office buzzed. People straightened stacks of paper that didn't need straightening. Someone actually replaced the break room coffee. Mark fussed with his tie in the reflection of his dark computer screen. "Big day," he said. "Let's make sure we show them how strong our leadership is." By leadership, I knew he meant Tessa. He swept in a little later than usual, clearly having put extra effort into her appearance. New blazer, fresh blowout, slides full of corporate jargon loaded on her laptop. "Remember," Mark told her in a low voice I still heard anyway, "this is a chance to prove to corporate that putting you in the role was the right call." I glanced up from my screen. The right call. A strange calm settled over me. I wasn't the one who made that call, but I knew who had been picking it up every day since. We gathered in the conference room. Tessa at the head of the table, Mark beside her, me along the side with a stack of reports and my laptop. A few other team members as supporting cast. Alderline's delegation arrived right on time. Karen Hill was exactly as I'd imagined, tall, brisk, with the air of someone who had spent years in warehouses and boardrooms and wasn't easily impressed. "Good to finally meet you all in person," she said, shaking hands down the line. When she got to me, she paused. "Anne," she asked. "Yes," I said. "Nice to meet you, Ms. Hill," she smiled. "Please," she said, "call me Karen. You're the voice I hear every time a truck goes missing." There was a ripple of polite laughter. Tessa's smile tightened just a fraction. We sat. Tessa started the presentation. She talked about optimization frameworks and synergy and leveraging cross-departmental alignment. The slides were pretty. The buzzwords were plentiful. Karen listened, expression neutral. When Tessa finished, Karen nodded politely. "Thank you," she said. "That was comprehensive." She turned her gaze to me. "Diane," she said, "could you walk me through what actually happens on a bad day? Let's say a shipment is delayed, a route gets messed up, and my production line is about to stop. Who does what and how fast?" I glanced at Tessa. She gestured slightly, as if to say, "Go ahead." So I did. I walked Karen through it, step by step. How we track shipments in real time. How we reroute when storms hit. Which warehouses we call first. How we prioritize her loads against other clients when there's a bottleneck. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't underplay either. I described what we actually did. I saw it land. Karen asked follow-up questions. I answered them without needing to check notes. At one point, she smiled faintly. "That matches what I've seen from my side," she said. "Every time something goes sideways, it's your name in my inbox with the solution." Tessa interjected. "Of course," she said quickly. "All of that happens under my leadership. Diane and the team execute brilliantly, but the strategies," Karen held up a hand, not unkindly. "I understand hierarchy," she said. "I also understand who sends the emails that actually fix my problems." The room went very quiet. Mark shifted in his seat. "We're all one team here," he said with a tight smile. "Tessa sets direction, and Diane ensures flawless execution. Great partnership." Karen let that sit for a moment. Then she closed her notebook. "This has been very helpful," she said. "I'd like to speak to Diane alone for a few minutes, if that's all right." My heart skipped. Mark's expression flickered. "Of course," he said. "Tessa and I will step out and get some coffee." They left. The door closed. It was just me and Karen. She waited a few beats, as if to let the air settle, then turned fully toward me. "How long have you been here, Diane?" she asked. "Just over 20 years, I said. "And how long have you been doing the work you just described?" she asked. "About 8, I replied. "Officially as a senior coordinator. Unofficially, a bit longer," she nodded slowly. "And your new operations manager has been here?" she asked. "About 6 months, I said carefully. A small smile ghosted across her face. "I thought so," she said. She leaned forward. "I'm going to ask you a question," she said. "You don't have to answer it, but I'd appreciate your honesty if you can." I swallowed. "Okay," I said. "Are you happy here?" she asked. No one at my company had ever asked me that. They'd asked if I was available. They'd asked if I could take on more. They'd asked if I could stay late. But never that. I thought about lying. I thought about saying, "Of course, everything's fine," and defaulting to the safe script. Instead, I took a breath. "I'm proud of the work I do," I said slowly. "I care about our clients. I care about my team. But no, I'm not happy with how I've been treated." She didn't look surprised. "Because of the promotion?" she asked. "In part," I said. "I applied for a role that matches what I've been doing for years. It went to someone less experienced." "Your boss's daughter," she said plainly. I blinked. "What makes you say that?" I asked. She shrugged. "I've been in business a long time," she said. "Nepotism is not subtle." I let out a breath that was half laugh, half disbelief. "See," I said. She studied me for a moment. "I appreciate that you didn't throw her under the bus in there," she said. "You could have. It would have been easy. But you didn't." "It wouldn't help anyone," I said. "Least of all my team. Or you. You need stability, not drama." "That's exactly my point," she said. "You're thinking about the work, not just your pride. That matters." She opened her notebook again, scribbled something, then looked up. "Here's the thing, Diane," she said. "Like working with people who know what they're doing and who treat others with respect. Over the years, every time there's been a problem, you've been the one to fix it with calm, with clarity, no excuses. I notice things like that." Her next words landed like a stone dropping in still water. "Our company is expanding," she said. "We're opening a new regional hub in 3 months. We're looking for an operations manager to build the team from the ground up. Someone who understands logistics on the ground and can lead without ego. Someone like you." My heart started pounding. I said, then stopped. She smiled. "I'm not asking you to decide anything right now," she said. "I know leaving a place after 20 years is not a small thing. But if you're open to it, I'd like to talk to you offsite about what that role could look like." I stared at her. "Why me?" I asked, genuine confusion in my voice. "'Cause for 8 years, every time I thought, if Diane ever leaves that place, I want her on my side. You gave me one more reason to think so," she said. "You didn't know you were interviewing, but you were." I felt something tighten in my throat. "Would it be a lateral move?" I asked. "Title-wise, I mean." She shook her head. "It would be a promotion," she said. "In title, in responsibility, and in pay. You'd be walking in as the manager, not doing the job in the shadows, while someone else gets credited for it." I swallowed hard. "I don't want to poach you unethically," she added. "I respect relationships. I also believe in fairness. From where I sit, what's happening here isn't fair." There was a long pause. I thought of Jenna, telling me not to confuse being used with being valued. I thought of all the nights I'd stayed late, without extra pay. All the times I'd sat in that bathroom stall and given myself pep talks. All the irreplaceable S that never came with a raise. "Can I think about it?" I asked. "Of course," she said. "Here's my card. Call me when you're ready to talk. Even if your answer is no, I'd still like to take you to lunch as a thank you for saving my skin more times than I can count." She slid a business card across the table. I took it. Her name, her title, her direct number. Door I hadn't known existed was suddenly, quietly open. When I left the conference Corinne's room, Mark and Tessa were hovering nearby. "How did it go?" Tessa asked brightly. "Productive," Corinne answered before I could. Diane walked me through some very useful details. "You've got a real asset here." "She's our rock," Mark said quickly. "We'd be lost without her." I smiled politely. For the first time, those words didn't land as a compliment. They landed as a warning. Would really be lost if I left. Them, not me. That night, at my kitchen table, I laid out Corinne's card in front of me like a test I hadn't studied for. I called Jenna. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, Mom," she said. "How'd the big visit go? You know Alderline?" I asked. "The client you're always saving," she said. "Yeah." "Their head of logistics offered me an operations manager role at their new regional hub," I said. There was a beat of silence, then, "What?" I repeated it slower. Jenna let out a sound that was half laugh, half disbelieving yell. "Mom," she said, "that's huge. What did you say?" "That I'd think about it," I said. She groaned. "Of course you did," she said. "Okay, let's think out loud together." We talked for over an hour. About salary ranges for similar roles. About Alderline's reputation as an employer. About my benefits, my pension, my fear. "It's scary," I admitted. "I've been in one place my whole career. I know every crack in the ceiling tile there. I know where the bodies are buried, figuratively speaking." "Mom," she said gently, "you're not a houseplant. You're allowed to be repotted." I laughed despite myself. "What if I fail?" I asked. "You've already been doing the job," she said. "The only difference is that, in this version, they admit it." Her words hit me like a soft hammer. "Only question you need to ask yourself," she said, "is this: in 5 years, which regret would feel heavier, taking a chance and struggling a bit, or staying where you are and watching them keep using you?" I stared at the card. "I'll call her tomorrow," I said, surprising myself. "Good," Jenna said. "I'll be here cheering you on and ready to say, 'I told you so,' if this turns into the best thing that ever happened to you." Over the next few weeks, I met with Corinne twice. Once at a quiet coffee shop near our office. Once via video call with her HR director. They laid out the role. It was everything I was already doing, and then some. Managing a team, designing processes from scratch, working directly with other department heads. The pay was significantly higher. The benefits were better. The culture, from what I could tell, was less performative. "We value people who get things done and treat others well," Corinne said. "Not people who are good at politics." Your references and my experience with you tell me you're the first kind. I asked hard questions. About workload, about expectations, about support. They answered honestly. It wasn't going to be easy. But for the first time, I felt like the difficulty would at least be acknowledged and compensated. Finally, they sent me a formal offer. I printed it and laid it next to my current pay stub. The difference was stark, not just in numbers, in respect. I slept on it. One quiet morning, I wrote my resignation letter. Handing it in was one of the strangest moments of my life. I walked into Mark's office. He looked up, distracted. "Everything okay, Diane?" he asked. "Yes," I said, placing the envelope on his desk. "I'm giving my notice," he blinked. "What?" he said. No, Diane. We can't afford to lose you." I stayed calm. "I've accepted an operations manager role with Alderline's new regional hub," I said. "My last day will be in 4 weeks. I'll document everything and help with the transition as much as I can." His face went through several phases. Shock, annoyance, panic. "Alderline," he repeated. "Our client." "Yes," I said. That's unethical," he sputtered. "You can't just—" I checked my contract, I said quietly. "There's no non-compete clause and no prohibition on working for a client. I've given you more than the required notice. I'm leaving cleanly." Opened his mouth, then shut it again. "Is this about the promotion?" he asked. Part of me wanted to laugh. "Partly," I said, "but it's also about 20 years of being told I'm irreplaceable while being kept in the same place." He looked genuinely confused. "But you had stability here," he said. "Isn't that what you wanted? We treated you like family." Family. The word sounded different now. "Real family doesn't keep you small to make themselves comfortable," I said gently. Celebrate when you grow. He sat back, rattled. What am I supposed to tell corporate? He asked. The truth, I said. That one of your most experienced employees was offered a role that finally matched her contributions, and she took it. He ran a hand through his hair. Tessa is still learning, he muttered. We needed you here to support her. There it was, the real heart of it. You'll figure it out, I said. You're very resourceful when it comes to getting what you want. I stood. Send a detailed transition plan by end of week, I added. I want to leave things in good shape for the team. He looked up at me, something like regret flickering across his face. You're really going to do this, he said. Yes, I replied. I am. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was doing something for me. News spread quickly. Is it true? Maria asked, eyes wide. You're leaving? Yes, I said. I got an offer I couldn't ignore. I'm happy for you, she said, hugging me. Also mildly furious at this place for pushing you to this point. Brian came by later. You were my favorite boss they never promoted, he said with a sad smile. They don't deserve you, Diane. The new place is lucky to have you. On my last day, I cleared my desk. Photos, mugs, the folder with printed client emails I'd kept as a quiet reminder of what I'd done. I left one thing behind. A single post-it note inside my top drawer. If you're reading this, you're probably doing more than they're paying you for. Don't forget who you are, D, not revenge. Just a breadcrumb. For whoever inherited my role in all its invisible weight. As I rode the elevator down for the last time, I felt strangely calm. No dramatic speeches. No slamming doors. Just a quiet, firm step into something new. At home that evening, I poured myself a cup of tea, sat on the couch, and let the stillness settle. I had no idea what was about to happen back at my old office. I just knew this. I had finally stopped waiting for them to see me. I had chosen to go where I was already seen. Karma, as it turned out, was not finished with my old company. But I didn't hear about that until later. For a little while, I was too busy learning how to be the operations manager I'd always known I could be, out in the open, with a nameplate on the door to prove it. That part of the story deserves its own chapter. Starting at Alderline felt like walking into the same movie, but with a different ending. The office still had gray carpets and humming printers. There were still spreadsheets and routing charts and red lines on maps, but the energy was different. On my first day, Karen walked me around, introducing me as our new operations manager. Not our rock, not the one who makes things happen behind the scenes. As the actual title that matched the actual work. People shook my hand. Nice to meet you, Diane. Karen told us you're the reason we survived last winter's storm delays. Glad to finally have you on our side. I didn't know where to put all that. I was used to making myself as small and useful as possible. Here, they seemed to expect me to take up space. Your office is down this hall, Karen said. Office, with my name on the door. Diane Morgan, operations manager. Stood there for an extra second, just looking at it. Feels weird at first, Karen said, smiling. You'll get used to it. I hoped she was right. The work was intense. We were launching a new regional hub. Nothing was already in place. No habits, no shortcuts. No, we've always done it this way. It was terrifying. It was exhausting. It was exhilarating. Karen gave me a team to build. We hired some strong junior people, she said. But I want you to shape this the way you know it should be. You've seen what doesn't work. Don't recreate it. I thought of my old place, of titles used as shields, of leaders who cared more about looking in charge than being responsible, of family used as a reason to keep people stuck. I made a quiet promise to myself I would not become what I'd left. I hired people who cared more about the work than the politics. I made it clear from day one. We fix problems together. We give credit where it's due. We don't throw teammates under the bus ever. When someone did good work, I said their name in meetings. When I made a mistake, I owned it out loud. It wasn't perfect. No workplace is, but it was honest, and my body knew the difference. I slept better. My shoulders loosened. I stopped bracing for impact every time there there was a calendar invite from management. About 6 months into my new role, on a rainy Tuesday, an email popped into my inbox from my old company. Not exactly from them, from Maria. Subject line, "You won't believe this." I opened it. "Diane, you were right to leave. Remember how they always said we'd be lost without you? Turns out they weren't wrong, just not in the way they thought. A month after you left, we had another big routing crisis with Alderline. Tessa tried to handle it herself. She didn't. Trucks were late, someone sent the wrong files, and nobody knew how to fix the mess because you were always the one who quietly did it. Alderline wasn't happy. Karen, you know her, called Mark directly. From what I heard, she was very clear about the impact. Shortly after, Alderline pulled part of their business and moved those routes to drumroll, our competitor. Our site lost revenue. Corporate got involved. There was an audit looking at decisions and performance over the last year. Mark got demoted. Tessa was reassigned to a more junior role in another branch. No leadership responsibilities. Officially, it was a restructuring. Unofficially, everyone knows why. People keep saying, if they'd just promoted Diane when they had the chance. I just thought you should know Karma's been busy. Miss you here. Happy you're not dealing with this mess, but we all wish we had your kind of backbone. I read it twice. Then I sat back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. I didn't feel triumphant, exactly. There was no evil laugh. No serves them right dance in my head. What I felt was quiet confirmation. Something I'd always suspected, but never really trusted. Sometimes, you don't have to burn anything down yourself. You just have to stop holding up what was never yours to carry. Without me there to patch every crack, the structure they'd built on ego and favoritism started to show its flaws. Clients saw it, corporate saw it, the universe saw it, and I was already gone. A few weeks later, Karen and I were walking the warehouse floor, checking on a new process we'd implemented. She glanced at me. "You heard about the shakeup at your old place?" she asked. I raised an eyebrow. "Maria sent me an email," I said. "You lost some business with them." "We shifted some of it," she corrected, "to partners who treat their people better." There was no gloating in her voice, just fact. "It wasn't my goal to hurt them," I said. "I know," she replied. "That's the interesting thing about karma in business. The people who chase revenge rarely get the peace they think they will. Ones who quietly choose integrity and walk away, they usually land somewhere better." We stopped at a loading dock, watching a truck pull out. "You did the right thing when you were there," she said, "beyond what they deserved. You did the right thing leaving when you finally had somewhere else to land. That's all anyone can ask." I thought of all those nights in the bathroom stall, whispering to myself that doing the right thing still mattered, even when it didn't look like it was paying off. It had felt lonely then. Didn't anymore. Life settled into a new normal. I had bad days, sure. Days where systems crashed. Days where a new hire quit after 2 weeks. Days where I questioned whether I was really cut out for this. But those doubts were about the work, not my worth. At my old job, I'd question myself even when I knew I'd done well, because recognition always felt like a moving target. Here, if I did something well, people said so. If I messed up, it was addressed, and then we fixed it. No games, no pretending. One afternoon, about a year after I'd left the old company, I ran into Brian at a networking event. He'd left too. "Got tired of being told I'd get my shot next time," he said. "I figured if you could jump at 50, I could jump at 33. We laughed. "How is it?" he asked. "Being the actual manager, not the secret one," I thought for a moment. "It's a lot," I said, "but it's mine. That's the difference. I'm not holding up someone else's facade. I'm building something I'm willing to put my name on." He nodded slowly. "I like that," he said, "putting your name on it. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, I sit on my couch with a cup of tea and think back to the day I walked into Mark's office as a 20-something nobody, to the years of being the reliable one, to the morning I realized his daughter was sitting in the chair I'd been aiming for. There's an ache there still, not a wound anymore, a scar, reminder of what I lived through and what I chose not to carry forward. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: karma in the workplace isn't always a dramatic downfall. Sometimes it's simpler. The people who build their success on using others eventually find out what it feels like when those others leave. The people who choose integrity, even when it costs them in the short term, slowly become the kind of person other people want to bet on. In my case, karma looked like a client who'd quietly been watching my work for years, a new door opening right when I thought I was too old to knock, a boss who saw my refusal to sabotage as a sign of strength, not weakness, and on the other side, a boss and his daughter who had to face how much I'd actually been holding together. I did get even. I got free. So that's where we've reached in this story. It began with a loyal woman doing the invisible work of leadership. Watched her be passed over for a title given to her boss's daughter. Followed her choice to keep her integrity instead of sabotage. Saw a client secretly interviewing her for years through her actions. Watched her accept a new, better role where she was truly valued. And then saw karma quietly tilt the scales. Her old boss demoted. His daughter moved down, while she built something better somewhere else. Now it's your turn. If you were in Diane's place doing the work while someone else got the title, what would you have done? Would you have stayed and swallowed it, hoping next time would be different? Would you have sabotaged them just to prove a point? Or would you have quietly built an exit plan and waited for the right door? Be honest with yourself. Tell me in the comments. Have you ever been overlooked for a promotion in favor of someone with less experience or a relative of the boss? Did anything good come out of it later when you look back now? Did your own version of workplace karma ever show up? If this story resonated with you, even a little, please tap like so more people who've been used or overlooked at work can hear this story. Subscribe to Karma's Letterbox for more long, calm, real lifestyle stories about kindness, integrity, and quiet karmic justice at work and at home. Hit the bell icon so you're here with me for the next letter life sends. And if you have your own workplace karma story, I'd love to read it below.